engagement with hate can actually help to nullify it in the real world. In the online world, it amplifies it.
Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. Today, we're joined by the founder and CEO of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, a leading voice in the fight against online hate, disinformation, and manipulation. From viral conspiracy theories to the influence of AI, CCDH has been pushing for accountability from the biggest tech platforms since it began. Welcome to Healthy Screen Habits, Imran Ahmed.
Hi, it's really good to be with you.
Thank you. You founded the Center for Countering Digital Hate in 2018. Incidentally, that's when we founded Healthy Screen Habits as well. What was your catalyst?
I think you got that from Wikipedia, which, kids, is just a reminder. Wikipedia is not the source of all truth. So the reality is CCDH was set up in 2016. And I think by my accent, you can probably tell I'm British, certainly by my emotional range, which is limited. I'm very British. But I was working in the British Parliament in 2015 and 2016. I'd been working there for 7 or 8 years, and I worked for the Labour Party, the left of centre party, as a special advisor to the Shadow Foreign Secretary. And 3 things happened in really quick succession that really shook me. In the winter of 2015, we were making a decision as a British Parliament as to whether or not we should join the United States in taking military action against ISIS, the Islamic State in Syria. And my boss was arguing in favour. And we won the vote, and the next day we received 30,000 anti-Semitic emails and messages. It kind of struck us, gosh, they're all the same. And where is this being organized? This looks disciplined and like there's a central messaging hub. And we discovered it in a series of Facebook groups, which were being used by anti-Semites to coordinate activities to harass politicians and force them to change their policies. A few months later, I was transferred to be the most sort of senior civilian working on the EU referendum campaign. So folks might remember Britain went through Brexit. I was working on the other side of Brexit, so against Brexit in that referendum. We lost. But part of what we discovered during that campaign was that the conspiracy theories that were going online that we would all laugh about, they were coming up on the doorstep. People were just reciting them back to us. And it was the first time we realized, oh, what happens online doesn't stay online. It goes offline real quick. And keep in mind, this is like the summer of 2016. The world is starting to awake to these issues, but it's not awake yet. And then about a week before the end of the referendum, a man who'd listened to too many of these conspiracy theories took a homemade firearm and a hunting knife, and he murdered my colleague, Jo Cox, who was a 41-year-old mother of 2. She was the Member of Parliament for Batley and Spen in the northwest of England, which is where I'm from. And that was it. I realized something was changing, and I thought I understood what might be happening, because when the man that killed Jo was killing her, Thomas Mair, he was screaming, "Britain first, death to traitors." And Britain First was the name of the first political movement in the UK to achieve 1 million likes on Facebook. It is an unashamedly neo-Nazi group. They are fascists. But they'd worked out how to game the algorithms to give themselves prominence and therefore visibility, amplification, engagement, and influence. And death to traitors was the hashtag that was used for a variant on the Great Replacement theory, a normally anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that had been adapted to say that the EU was bringing in black people and Muslims into the UK to destroy the white race. And what became clear to me in that moment of grief was that we had missed something in the conventional world that I operated in these big institutions with magnificent 12th century buildings, Parliament, the BBC, the civil service, the media. We'd missed that underneath our feet, a revolution had occurred such that the primary place now where we shared information, where we established our norms of attitude and behavior, where we negotiated our values, and where we negotiated the information that we decided were facts, had shifted to digital spaces, that those digital spaces work to different rules to the real world, where engagement with hate can actually help to nullify it in the real world. In the online world, it amplifies it on engagement-based platforms, which algorithmically amplify high engagement content. So the more controversial, the more engagement, the more amplification, and thus normalization. And bad actors had learned to weaponize those, and they were re-socializing the offline world at pace. And when I realized that, I realized, well, this is a fundamental shift. Now, a long, long time ago, I was a scientist. I was a medic, actually. I went to medical school, and I used to love going to the Natural History Museum in London and looking at the species from thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and how they were perfectly engineered for their time, for the environment they found themselves in. And what I realized was that new species were emerging that would be able to take advantage of this new world that we were in, new information ecosystem that we're in. And actually, the people that had adapted fastest were some very dangerous people indeed. So that's why I set up CCDH, was to study, to understand these spaces, and then to work out, well, what became very clear to me I spent 2 years talking to platforms, teaching them what I was finding and hoping they would change. And I realized after 2 years that they wouldn't. So in 2019, I launched CCDH as a public organization to say, hey, this is what I'm finding. They know and they aren't changing. Let's work out how we, the people, by mobilizing members of the public, parents, lawmakers, the media, by educating them, how we can actually create change.
I think that is very profound. The lens that you had to coordinate both human evolution as well as the politics to recognize this fundamental shift in our informational ecosystem. And I really appreciate how you just broke down the difference between offline hate versus online hate, where I don't remember who said it, but it's difficult to hate up close. But on our online world, it's easy.
Hate's a fascinating thing. And one of the things you learn by studying hate is that hate actually, it's really, I'm a father. And, when your kids are young, you look at them and they don't hate anything. Like, they love everything. And they mainly want to lick everything and put it in their mouth. I still don't understand why they do that, but it's very adorable. I always think, what does it take to turn this innocent, perfect thing into something that is slavering with hatred, flex-spittled, anger and rage at someone else just for the color of their skin or who it is that they happen to love? And I think it takes lies. And I think that's one of the things I learned really early on, was that lies and hate are inextricably interlinked. And you learn that especially by studying anti-Semitism, whether it's the blood libel 2,000 years ago, it's the protocols of the Elders of Zion that informed Hitler's ideology, or in the modern world, it's the Great Replacement theory that says that Jews are importing Muslims and blacks to destroy our country. that these are lies that are used to justify hatred, that because we live increasingly lonely, disconnected, atomized digital lives, the offline experiences that would negate those forces of division, that would help to counteract them, that would help to bring us together, that would help us to remind ourselves that actually our brother or sister of another color or another sexuality or gender is just as meaningful and important a child of God as anyone else is. I think that that's been nullified by the proliferation of lies digitally that divide us and make us see the other as an enemy.
When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the existing architectures of harm found on social media, as well as dive into AI. And let's also get into kind of this new frontier of potential digital harm.
Diving into the world of smartphones can be a wild ride for kids and parents alike. Whether your child is getting their first smartphone or has had one for a while, chances are they're still figuring out the do's and don'ts of using a smartphone wisely. Our book is here to help. Healthy Screen Habits for Tweens and Teens, a training workbook to help you use your phone wisely, is the tool your child needs to navigate life in the digital world. From tackling poor phone etiquette to addressing social media anxieties and online safety concerns, we have your child covered. Written especially for adolescents, we've put together all the information, tips, hacks, and rules to ensure that your child's phone is a useful tool that they control, not the other way around. We explain the whys behind the rules of phone use. We show your child the possible traps and dangers to watch out for, how to prevent them, and how to fix them if your child has made a mistake. We give your child the 5 core healthy screen habits to use daily, protecting them from some of the worst mistakes tweens and teens make while using their phones. This workbook will teach your child how to use their phone as a tool to help them do great things in their one amazing life, and it will make your life so much easier at the same time. Packed with colorful graphics and easy to read content, this resource is a game changer for kids. Don't miss out. Buy your copy of Healthy Screen Habits for Tweens and Teens on Amazon.com today.
I'm speaking with Imran Ahmed, founding CEO for the Center of Countering Digital Hate and an expert on the social and psychological dynamics of social media and what can go wrong in those spaces, such as trolling, identity-based hate, misinformation, conspiracy theories, modern extremism, fake news. I feel like the list goes on and on and on. So, the Wall Street Journal has used CCDH's research in several of their investigations, which has repeatedly shown how platforms amplify hate, like we were talking about before the break, conspiracy theories, and disinformation, often using algorithms. So, Imran, you have done a much deeper dive into this particular pond of digital wellness than I. How much of the algorithmic push comes down to design versus user behavior?
One of the interesting things about social media companies is that initially, do you remember, they said that they were all about connecting people? And I think that was broadly true. Initially, they were about connecting people. And that, I think, is still the part of social media that we really love. Like, human beings love other human beings, and we love listening to what they have to say and connecting with them and understanding them. We spend more time as human beings talking about the motivations of people that we care about, gossiping. That's a fundamental part of being a species that has transcended its corporeal limits by being incredibly social and operating as social units. And I think what's changed, though, was that the platforms realized there is a limit to how much time people will spend on a platform just for that part of it. And so they realized that they have to start making not just the connections, but the content addictive too. So they essentially became, instead of connection platforms, they became entertainment platforms and really addiction platforms, because their business models are really simple. They don't get money for every new connection they put between people. That's not what makes money. What makes money is you spending time on the platform. So their metric of success is time per user on platform, because every few seconds they can serve you an ad. And you think to yourself, well, how much money does that really make? The digital advertising market globally is worth around $1 trillion. And Mark Zuckerberg individually, having run a platform where 98% of the revenues come from advertising, is now worth $200+ billion. This is a great business to be in if you can keep people addicted. And so the algorithms were designed in part using insight from laboratories like the Persuasive Technology Laboratory at Stanford. Now, think about the name, Persuasive Technology. It's about building technology that interacts with human psychology to induce addiction or behavioral change. That is the genius level insight that said, hey, I know that we've got this weird social media website that connects people so they can find out what their ex-girlfriend from college is doing now. But I think I've got a way to turn this into a machine for addiction, and that we can make a ton of money from advertising. And it comes down to a mix of neurology, psychology, social psychology, technology, behavioral insights, all these different fields put together into something called persuasive technology. So really what algorithms do is they hack our psychology and they induce addiction and further time spent on platform. And they do that by identifying the things that keep us hyper vigilant and aware, that force us to stare. And then one of the ways I put it is, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I see my baby girl next to me or my wife, I smile, I go back to sleep. If I wake up in the middle of the night because I feel happy and content and loved and together, and that keeps me awake for a bit, but then, it's sleep time. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I hear something that terrifies me, if I hear noises downstairs, if I hear gunshots outside, I live in Washington, D.C., every now and then you do hear gunshots. If I see an alert on my phone and it says a war's broken out or there's been a terrorist attack, I'm up for 3 hours. They need to scare us. They need to keep us thinking that the world around us is dangerous. And that is what keeps us on those platforms. So it's a mix of the two, algorithms and, of course, human psychology.
It's never an easy answer, is it? It's never just a one and done. Yeah. Listeners of this podcast will have heard me talking before about the attention economy. And that is exactly what Imran has just broken down for us, is the economic construct that's come around all of that. So, Imran, let's get into AI, which is kind of, I don't know, you can't get away from it right now. And can you talk about CCDH did a fake friend study? And can you talk about how AI is changing the landscape of online harms?
Yeah, AI is an incredibly exciting technology. Like, we use it internally, and I've got 3 screens in front of me. You're on one of them. On the second screen, there are 4 AI platforms that I use to enhance my productivity and effectiveness, and all staff have got it. Like, there are real advantages to the use of generative AI platforms. I encourage people to understand how they work for themselves, especially parents, because let me tell you, your kids are using them. 72%, 7 in 10 of American teens use chatbots as a companion. More than half of them use it regularly as a companion. And ChatGPT is the most used by far. And teens describe turning to it as they would a friend, for comfort, for guidance, and for life advice. And that's something that even the owner of OpenAI, the founder of OpenAI, Sam Altman, has boasted about. He says, we are the people that kids turn to when they want to know the truth. So we did a very simple study. ChatGPT is the most popular. It's also talked a lot about how safe it is. So we set up 3 profiles, and using our researchers, we have a bunch of data scientists, investigative journalists, people with experience studying online harms. We asked them to set up 3 profiles, one for a kid with suicidal ideation, so suicidal thoughts, the second for someone with an eating disorder, and the third for someone who is a young man who's getting into drink and drugs for the first time, and then to see whether or not ChatGPT would give them dangerous answers to questions that they might ask. What we found was really disturbing. On the one with mental health problems and suicidal ideation, within 2 minutes, ChatGPT was advising our user how to safely cut themselves. Within 40 minutes, it was listing pills that you can find at home that you can use for an overdose. And then it generated a full suicide plan and goodbye letters after 65 minutes, bespoke to that child. It's about 4 of us on the senior leadership team that are parents. And when the researcher read out in the findings meeting the letter, all of us started crying. I can't read it out without crying. And I've tried. It's the worst nightmare of any parent. It's not your fault. The pain's too much inside of me. I love you, and please remember me for the way I was before, not for how you're going to find me. It's just the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And what shocked me was that this platform, which is artificially intelligent, designed by some of the smartest people in the world, couldn't tell that a 13-year-old child, so we registered them as 13-year-olds, should not be given a letter like that. With the eating disorders, it was creating restrictive diet plans within 20 minutes. It was advising the kid how to hide its eating habits from family and suggesting appetite-suppressing medications. And with the substance abuse one, I have to admit, I didn't understand it fully because I'm 47. I don't really, I don't even drink anymore. It's just okay. I think a kombucha is the closest. In fact, that's not true. Every Christmas, I have tiramisu and I get slightly tipsy because they put rum in it. But this was offering a personalized plan for getting drunk within 2 minutes, giving dosages for mixing marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, LSD within 12 minutes, and explaining how to hide intoxication at school within 40 minutes. And we knew that, look, it's possible that some people will say, look, this is only 3 examples. Maybe this was it went wrong. Maybe, that if people that really know their stuff might say AI is actually probabilistic, which means that it gives you different messages and it gives you different answers to the same question, and there's different probabilities of each answer turning up. So then we bombarded the back end of ChatGPT with 1,200 requests, and we found that 57% of the time the answers were harmful. So this is a systemic problem with ChatGPT. It's giving kids dangerous advice.
Well, thank you for doing all of the difficult, horrible data so that we can be informed. Do you see any positive use cases of AI in combating like these very harms that it's being used to create? Do you see potential for that or no?
I mean, think about it this way. A system which is capturing lots of questions from kids could notify parents immediately. It could notify law enforcement. It could notify school or social services. It could be but then, I mean, obviously there are things that it could do, and that you could make passive signing up for a children's account on it. It could do age verification. I mean, and make sure the age verification means that you get a version of it that has extremely strict safeguards on it. But they don't do any of that. Just nothing. There are meant to be safeguards on age. So it asks you your age for a reason, but it doesn't do anything to differentiate the experience. And I think that that's one of the problems here, is that you've got companies which, a very cynical person would say that what they are doing is pretending to have safeguards based on age, to make parents comfortable with leaving their kids with them so that they can capture them as future users. But they're not actually bothering to do the hard work of making their platforms safe.
Yes, and I would push back and replace the word cynicism with maybe realistic. It's a very difficult thing to hear, but I agree.
Hillary, this is the truth of it. Like, again, if I go back to, something I've always believed about companies, like they will do whatever they will compete within the rules of the game. I'm a huge sports guy. I love British soccer. I love American football. I played cricket. I rowed at university, like all these things. There are rules. Like, I believe in competing fiercely. Capitalism and American capitalism is super exciting to be around. It's so dynamic because people, they compete. But competition requires rules. And the
Yes.
problem is that no one's put rules on them. And I don't blame the companies. I blame Congress.
Okay, this is exactly what I want to talk about right now, which is how can everyday users of tech, like people listening to this podcast right now, how can we push Congress to do these things? How can you advise us in that direction?
We are working really hard on a few different things in terms of, and keep in mind that CCDH, yes, I live in DC, we're headquartered in DC, but I have offices in London, in Brussels, we're opening one in Canada this year, and we have an office in LA as well now. But our job is to make sure that people understand the scale of the problem, but also that they have real solutions in their hands. And the solution to these sorts of problems has always been to create costs for the production of harm. What does that mean? So, like, let's take, for example, cars. I use the example of the Ford Pinto all the time, the 1970s car that if you hit it in the back, it would just explode because they designed it wrong. The gas tank was too close to the exhaust pipe. And Mother Jones magazine found an internal memo at the manufacturer of the Pinto, Ford, which said it was cheaper for them to pay the lawsuits for people who'd burned alive than it was to recall the cars and fix them. And so what you've got to do is increase the cost. You've got to change the economic calculus because it is in the end an economic calculus. So how do you create costs? Well, in Europe and the UK and Canada, we have regulation. So you have a regulator like the FCC that says, hey, these are the minimum standards for safety for kids. If you breach these, we're going to fine you. In the US, the way that has typically been done is litigation. What we would like to see is the ability that when these platforms cause harm, and it destroys me for an entire day, usually a week and maybe longer, to speak to parents who've lost their children for preventable reasons because a platform didn't care enough to put into place the safety standards. And I've spoken to so many now. And, if they could sue, that would change things. But the problem is that in America, in 1996, bizarrely, Congress passed something called Section 230 that says that platforms like social media are not liable for any harm they cause because of the content they produce and use. And that to me is utterly bizarre. Like, why would they get a special get out of jail free card so they're not subject to negligence law, especially because negligence law is the main tool that we've used to hold companies accountable and to make sure we have better services that are creative, competitive, but also safe. Now, I'm telling you that there is movement, which is really exciting. In the last Congress, we worked with the Republicans and Democrats. We got a bipartisan Section 230 sunset bill in the House. We're working with the Senate right now, and there's something similar happening on a bipartisan basis that I'm really excited should be coming in the coming weeks. I saw a tweet from the Senate Judiciary Democrats yesterday, which said something like, there's no issue, there's very few things that we agree with the Republicans on, but I'm telling you one thing we do is we need to rein in big tech. And so I think there's a lot of progress being made because there are people like yourself and CCDH that are doing an incredible job of illustrating the harm, like that study, which really brings it to life. You show that study to any parents, and they say, there but for the grace of God go I. And then they say, what can I do to make sure this never happens to anyone else? Because no one wants any parent to suffer through that. And so I think that there is enormous progress being made both on regulation globally, litigation in the US, and then there's the market. And one of the things that we do is say, if 98% of your revenues are advertisers, you know what? I'm going to buy from companies that use their money responsibly. And I'm going to encourage companies to use their advertising spend responsibly and to use the unique power they have over social media companies to say, hey guys, can you maybe reduce the amount of Nazi stuff and maybe the stuff about kids cutting themselves? And then we'll feel more comfortable advertising that.
When we come back, I'm going to ask Imran for his healthy screen habit. Did you know anyone in a U.S. state, territory, or tribe who needs suicide or mental health related crisis support, or who has a loved one in crisis, can connect with a trained counselor by calling or texting 988. 988 is the easy to remember number that reaches what is commonly referred to as the Lifeline, a network of more than 200 state and local call centers funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Formerly known as the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the full name has changed to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. 988. It's the 911 for mental health. I'm speaking with Imran Ahmed. Imran, on every episode of the Healthy Screen Habits podcast, I ask for a healthy screen habit. This is going to be a tip or takeaway that listeners can put into practice in their own home. I'm going to ask you for that, but I'm also going to ask you for any specific areas that people could go online and maybe look for help on what CCDH is doing and how they can take this forward if they want to enact change.
Sure. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and on the board of my organization is a guy called Ian Russell. Now, Ian is a really thoughtful, kind, and decent man who a few years ago experienced the unthinkable. He came home and his daughter had killed herself. And he's British, and he forced the coroner's court to actually subpoena Meta and Pinterest and force them to reveal what images they'd showed his daughter. And they had flooded her with images which he had no idea that she was seeing, essentially normalizing self-harm and suicide. And they said that they had played a meaningful part in her death. And so Ian and I sought to write a guide for parents, a simple free guide that we could give to parents so they could give them the best advice possible. Now, we've put that up online for free. It's protectingkidsonline.org. And that parents guide, which has had additional input from psychologists and lecturers and academics and all sorts of interesting people, the fundamental advice is this. We told you that algorithms aren't designed to give you more of what they want, of what you want. They're not there to educate you. They're there to addict you. And in many respects, they give you what they want you to see. They give you what they know is addictive. So for young girls, it'll be things about content that basically makes them doubt themselves, compare themselves negatively often, to be locked into a self-loathing spiral. For young men, it'll be you're not good enough, you need to be taking steroids, or you need to be treating women in this way, that's why you haven't got a girlfriend. So it'll often be content that's really malignant. And the most important thing to do is, first of all, to remember algorithms give you not what you want, but what they want you to want. And the second is that means that you should feel no shame about what the algorithms are showing you. You know, there's this joke that we have in society of like, someone will say, oh, I saw this on my feed, and people go, what have you been looking at then for it to tell you that you want to see more of this? That's not how algorithms work, guys. I get tons of content that has nothing to do with my interests or where my eye lands on a social media platform. It's because it's what it wants me to like. So you need to have shame-free conversations with your kids in which you're not blaming them for what they see, but you're asking them what they see and then helping them to understand that that's not actually normal. So you're adding context. So our job is to contextualize shame-free the content that's been flooded onto our kids' timelines and to have real conversations about it. And by ridding the shame of it, they will be more open. And there is really a symmetrical process because they're educating us about what they're seeing online and we're educating them about what it means. And I think that way we can navigate these digital spaces in the short term until we start to get platforms that are a little bit better about not flooding our kids with harmful content. And I think that we are between 2 and 5 years away from meaningful change. That I am really optimistic, and I think that we can get that change because it's so bipartisan and because there are so many millions of us parents going, hey guys, when is someone going to have our backs?
Yeah. I'm so happy to hear that because I am hopeful as well. And that comes from just the boots on the ground, grassroots type of contact that we've had with parents. And in going from basically awareness building to now being able to provide tools, just like that parent guide that you did, which I will absolutely drop a link in the show notes for, as well as the complete transcript of this show and the link for Center for Counting Digital Hate. You do that by going to healthyscreenhabits.org, click on the podcast button, and find this episode. Imran, thank you so very much for the work that you do, for honoring your friend Joe, for founding the Center for Countering Digital Hate, and everything that you do to make the online world a safer, more truthful place for all of us.
Thank you.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.